Thanks for joining us. We're getting ready for X-Men First Class, and we have Kevin Bacon joining us today on the show. And Kevin, you play the billionaire playboy villain in this one. That had to be a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, yeah. It's the first billionaire playboy I've played.
Very nice. Now, this is kind of a departure for you, too, isn't it? A lot of acting with green screens here and effects. How was that?
You know, it's a challenge to remember that the job that you're doing is also important, because there's a lot of other jobs floating around you, you know, all kinds of guys dressed in green and dangling things here and, you know, pulling stuff out there. And, you know, you have to remember that actually looking at the actors that you're working with and talking to them and listening to them are as important in a movie like this as they are in any other movie.
Does that make it harder for you to stay in character when you have all of this stuff going on around you and still you're supposed to maintain this character that you're trying to be?
I shot a scene with Michael Fassbender in the movie, and you know, it was a very, very intense kind of scene, and we'd been doing it for about 3 days, and I turned to him and I said, you know, this is really hard, you know, and it gave me a great appreciation for those actors, you know, like Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp, and Christian Bale, who actually can deliver great performances in really effects-driven movies.
Now, you know that the villain in these kinds of movies usually kind of sets the tone for the movie. Was that a lot of pressure for you?
Well, you know, I mean, every day is an adventure, and with the job that I'm lucky enough to have. I try not to think so much about the bigger picture when it comes to pressure. I mean, I try to just play the scenes to the best of my ability, and, you know, do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and hope that all the pieces turn into something that's cool. Now,
were you big into comic books before this, or as a kid growing up, or did you sort of have to really ramp up into this role and figure out the whole history behind it?
I was not really a comic book reader, but one of the great things about being in a Marvel movie is that they do all the research for you. You know, they pull every single reference in every single comic book back from the beginning of your character, in every single drawing and everything he said. So that ends up being, like, at least in my case, like a Bible like this.
Wow.
You know, incredible stuff to use as a great research tool.
Always great to have that unsung group of researchers around you, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. I mean, it's the type of work that obviously you'd sort of have to do on your own as an actor, but it's great when somebody is helping.
Now, this movie, for folks who have followed X-Men, this one sort of hits the reset button, doesn't it? It takes us back in time to around the Cuban Missile Crisis era, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you have, you know, Professor X and Magneto, who are, you know, kind of the two ends of the yin and yang of the mutant kind of world, and they are enemies in the current X-Men, and this is sort of brings it back to when they were friends and the evolution of this relationship between these two characters.
Does it feel odd to you when you're describing this movie that you're in and you're talking about mutants and other kinds of worlds? I mean, usually you do things that are a little bit more tangible than that.
In a funny kind of way, it doesn't, because I think that, you know, as an actor, you can't really imagine what it would be like to have superpowers. So what you have to do is sort of think about the human side of all of these characters. And that's one of the things that's great about X-Men, about the franchise in general, is that even though these guys have these, you know, amazing powers, they are very human. You know, they are jealous. They have relationships. They fall in love. They have sex. They get drunk. You know, they act a lot like humans, except for their mutations.
Yeah,
so the human side is.
Sounds like a pretty good life still.
Yeah.
Now, this is very fantastical. Was it more fun than doing the traditional things?
It was great. You know, I mean, I love being an actor. I love the time between action and cut. You know, that's what I look forward to in my life. I think that one of the things that's kind of exciting with a movie like this is there's so much that you don't see when you're shooting. You know, it's like a whole other movie in terms of, like, you know, effects and sound and all this kind of stuff. So that when you actually go and see it, it's really kind of a shock and a thrill.
Well, visually it looks incredible, and we're definitely looking forward to your performance in this, Kevin. And I guess we'll have to see whether you live and maybe make it into the sequel here.
We'll see.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.